Good evening. I was asked to share with everybody an update in regards to events that are on the calendar and being planned for this spring. First, I want to thank and acknowledge the class advisors, faculty advisors, student leaders, communications department, and so forth for the ongoing dialogue and flexibility and narrative with regards to the planning and so forth of these events, which is still an ongoing process for sure. So we recognize that there are still some plans to be ironed out with finality as we continue to move forward. What was communicated last week were items that were on our calendar for the spring, some of which we'll of course discuss in more detail this evening. But what is projected are the events that we have planned so far for this spring, starting with our National Honor Society induction in April. We're going to be able to recognize the seniors that were inducted last year, as well as the students that will be inducted for the first time this year. We're able to provide Powder Puff. We're planning to bring Powder Puff and Spirit Week back, as we mentioned in the fall. That was an event that did not take place then, with the hopes and the plan that it would take place in the spring. And we're going to be doing that the week of April 19th with Powder Puff game Friday night, April 23rd. As mentioned earlier, we do have a senior prom on the calendar. Obviously, that's been on the calendar for about 3 years now, April 24th, and we'll get back to that event in a little bit here, but that is on the calendar as of our communication last week. Decision day for our seniors will be Friday, May 30th, Friday, April 30th. May 1st is actually the decision day, but that is a Saturday. So we'll celebrate that and acknowledge that on Friday, April 30th. We'll have our impact awards again this year. We'll be able to have our seniors recognize those adults in the district who had an impact on them throughout their schooling and athletic careers and so forth here. You'll notice that there is an additional event. These events that are on the calendar here are very traditional for us in terms of spring events for our seniors. You'll notice that one event is original to that, and that's this event here on May 15th. We were able to select a date in May, which is really a very flexible event for us and ongoing and evolving with regards to what that's going to look like for our seniors. We were able to partner so far with SNAP and really start getting some dialogue going in regards to what the outcome and what this event can look like for our students. So really, really good dialogue about this event so far, and still obviously a work in progress. Something specific about that event, which is kind of what is going to make it most feasible and accessible to all of our students, is that this event will be outside in our stadium. So with regards to what people are being faced with in regards to high schools and providing events for students, large student groups and gatherings inside is going to be difficult. We recognize that. So the move to planning outdoor events is really kind of the move to be making and to be planning. So that's what that event will be and will be for. Again, a very flexible event with ongoing conversation with regards to exactly what that'll look like. And then we have our traditional recognition events here. May 20th, we'll recognize our senior academic recognition night. You'll notice that the term banquet really isn't in the name of these events. Banquets, traditionally we're able to have dinner and host those events inside and have dinner. We're not going to be in a position to be able to do that. So we'll recognize our seniors and so forth in these events. Our senior commencement scholarship award night will be on May 27th. We'll have our athletic recognition night for seniors June 1st. Every spring, our music association provides a nice gathering as well. That'll be June 4th. And then of course we have graduation, which is a big event and still to be determined. So a lot of work around all of these events really. And I think what we'll be looking at is a combination of virtual experiences, live stream experiences, and things like that. Some of course will be in person, but those really traditional award ceremonies in which we have hundreds of people in the gym or the auditorium or the cafeteria are just not the typical type of events that we'll be seeing. However, we will be able to recognize our students in a virtual or live stream capacity for some of those events. More specifically, there's probably a few on there that obviously require some more immediate attention in regards to timelines and things like that. One is senior prom, of course, and the other one, a little bit undefined at this time, is graduation. So at this time, I'll be happy to discuss senior prom as outlined in a communication that I sent out last week. We did identify that event is on the calendar for April 24th. It was a date that obviously we book our events about 3 years in advance in our facilities and get our deposits in and so forth. But we recognize there are some factors in regards to that event that need to be considered with regards to moving forward with that event or not. And the factors were outlined in that letter and communication that I sent out last week. One is the reduced capacity that all of these facilities are currently operating under. And of course, two, the health and safety of students in an event that is typically a very close contact type of event. Should I stop at that point, or should I move on to graduation for a little bit in terms of some thoughts and considerations for that?
Well, I'm a firm believer in dealing with the issue. So I say we discuss prom, and I'd like to start out. I guess in lieu of us going back and forth with parents and much discussion with the board and the administration, what would be the objectives to the parents taking this and running with this the way they want to outside of the district? Yeah. I mean, open to the board for discussion, but I can see this being a long drawn out discussion for many different reasons. And if the parents are willing, as a couple of them have stated, and we've seen the letters come in, if this is something they can do better than we can outside of the district, it becomes a less issue to deal with. It makes them happy. It gives them what they're looking for, and we move on to something else.
I think too that nothing has been historically the way we do school or anything else in the last year. So if we are thinking outside the box, and we heard the comments and we've seen the comments on social media and text messages and emails and phone calls, if we could, I'm not sure people even want it inside in the Sheraton. Quite honestly, I think that an outside, I wish if you feel that that's not where the school wants to go, I'd be with Mr. Jackson to say, then let's hand it over. Either work in partnership or hand it, because an outside event, I think, will make people feel safe and be safer than trying, even if the Sheraton allowed us to have more people. I don't know if people are going to be really comfortable with that either. And maybe we just need to move away from that altogether. Maybe we need to look at, that great idea you have for that post-prom style event. Maybe we do it as prom earlier. If you want to let the parents do that and you do the post-prom after. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to go with this. And there's an army of people that want to help. I don't want to turn them away, and I don't want it to be too much on the district. I know you've been beyond invested with everything going on and getting them back in 4 days, making sure that everybody's safe. But we do have to start, thinking about these things and where we're going with these. Maybe we move away from Sheraton altogether. That would be.
Well, I guess the first question is everybody, I mean, Dr. Collier, is the 24th really, the 24th at the Sheraton, is that even realistic? I mean, let's put it out there. I mean, to me, it seems that if it can only accommodate 80 students, it's not going to be an option for us. Is that fair?
Yeah, so I want to remind folks that the communication that was sent out last week was not indicative of affirmative plans
Right.
and.
No, that's what was on the calendar. I mean,
It was on the
I
calendar,
totally
and
understand
it's
that.
a-
So I guess what I'm saying is that's what was on the calendar because that's what we booked 3 years ago. We're
So,
sitting here today, we're looking at it. Realistically, that's not an option. So can we take that off? And let's really focus on what can we do going forward? And if it's not within our appetite to come up with alternative solutions like Mrs. Zazowski suggested outside, or I heard, somebody say, even if we did, a multi-night event or those kinds of things, do we have an appetite to look at that as an option and to look beyond? Because I think realistically, April 24th is not going to be an option for our senior class. It's not going to provide the opportunity for our entire senior class to be present. And that's not fair. It's not, to me, that's not acceptable.
I agree with you. I think, and is the April date carved in stone for the prom? I mean, if we moved it later, like into May, where the weather's nicer and they can be outside without freezing death, so it could still be pretty cold in April. That post-prom event, I don't know exactly what that is, but if that's something, it could be combined. We could have it we could use the parking lot with tents. I'm in favor of bagging that indoor event.
So I agree sorry if I'm jumping in here, that we need to do something for prom, something with, and it's not going to look like our traditional prom that we know of, but we do need to have something for the students to celebrate that. I think we have senior class advisors, we have the staff there, we have students that are involved, and I think that there's a place also for parent input in there also. And I'm sure that there are other districts facing the same dilemma, and that we can come up with some way in which we can make a special celebration that is safe for our students. And I do want to caution, if we're doing a school-sponsored event, that it does need to be under the direction of the school district for many reasons. If the parents are going to take charge of something, that would need to be outside of the district guidelines. So, and I can see that you're thinking of some ideas too. So
I would just say, to go along with that, I think it's not a bad idea at all to work with the parents. They're very out there and they would really like to help. I think with handing it over completely to the parents, there is a chance that instead of it becoming one big prom, it's like small 4 proms, and then the grade is split up and the grade is not together, which is what prom is all about. The senior class coming together, the junior class is coming together and just having a wonderful night. So that is one concern I do have with just completely handing it off.
Well, we can't do either we're all in or we're all out, because there is no partial. If you try to do a partial, you have to stay within the guidelines of every agency that's involved with the dynamics of what we're living with right now. So I'm only one board member, and I put it out there for discussion, but I think either we are all in or we're all out. There is no middle ground on this, I think, because the middle ground is being all in.
What if we, as a school district, provide the venue, as I said, like the parking lot or the stadium or whatever, and then let the parents handle everything else?
You're
No?
back
Because
to
we're
the, I'm sorry, Ms.
responsible
Earl.
for
You're
it
back to the
then.
partial. You're back to the partial again.
I'm sorry, can we task the administration to look into some ideas along with the senior advisors and staff, and to maybe come back with some ideas or two, and let them have this discussion about some options that might be available, that we can honor the senior class surrounding the idea of a prom, a promenade, or something.
Yeah, I agree. I think the students and the administration probably have better ideas than the board members, but though we have
But
some good ideas.
I'm not saying,
Could we?
I'm not looking for ideas from the board members. I'm looking at approaches, not ideas. I'm simply saying this, Ms. Fazzini, and the other board members. all
Got
due
it.
respect.
I agree.
Is it
It's-
possible
it-
to,
May I finish, please? That if it becomes a spring forward sanctioned event, that comes with different requirements as to oppose if Ms. Norwood wants to take lead on this and decides she wants to do it in her backyard or wherever she decides she shakes her head, or wherever she wants to do it, there's a lot more leeway with them and the school district is not involved with it. You can still have the kids involved, but Mr. Fitzgerald, from a legal perspective, if this becomes a spring forward sanctioned event, it takes on different responsibilities.
I think you said it perfectly. This is an all in, all out measure. And candidly, if we're all out, we are really all out. In other words, if an event does occur, we're going to make it very clear this is a non-spring forward sponsored event due to protections that we have as a municipality, shall we say, that may not be necessarily there for individuals. And if, they've run proms before, if we're putting it in the hands of individuals that have not run proms and all the things that go with prom night, we wouldn't want to have our hands in on any of it.
So I was contacted by a bunch of parents asking a lot of different questions, and that was exactly what I said to them as well, is that I don't think that they quite understand the details of what it means when Springford runs an event, a prom, and what constraints that we have. I've read and I've seen a lot of the ideas and suggestions. I mean, the biggest one is to have an outside event under a tent, but do we even know how many students would be going to prom? Do we have a rough idea? What are we budgeting for? If we're going to go down to the Sheraton, what would we budget it for in a non-COVID?
The venue would accept all the students in the grade. So what we budgeted for, we have the facility to accommodate, I'm going to give a ballpark number. We have 650, 670 students in the class. So well over 600 students that venue would accommodate. When this is the first time we've split the prom and actually so our prom, when it was a junior senior prom, would have 900 to 1,000 students. So one might anticipate 500, 600 students in a typical school year.
Okay, so I'm just planning purposes. I'm just, so in other words, the probability is that we would be looking at somewhere between 500 and 700 students as a, huh?
How do you get that? 500 to 700?
Based on
We have 650 in the class.
Right.
How would we have more than 650 in the class? If it's
because
just one
they
class?
could bring dates from other school districts.
I thought we were talking about all in head count. You weren't talking about all in head count? It was just our students?
We could exceed potentially the number of students in our grade. Unlikely, but feasibly.
All right, so we'll say 600. Is 600 an acceptable number?
We have a 67% participation rate for the senior class. That's the number we based off for most senior events. A 67% participation rate.
You're looking at between 400 and 500. Okay, so if we wanted to do some type of event outdoors, it would have to be a covered event, right? So in other words, we would need a facility that's covered because, being involved for many years volunteering for SNAP, I know how many times it rained on prom night, right? It seems like if it's prom night, it rained. So that there's a 50-50 chance that it's going to rain. So based on that, it has to be a covered event, right? So we would need a tent that's able to accommodate 2,500 people to get 500 plus, because we have chaperones and all that as well. So you're looking at probably another 25 people that are involved in chaperoning the event as well. So you're looking at, let's just say 550. So, and it has to be over 2,000 because the way the state guidelines is like, what was it, like up to 2,000 is 10%, but 2001 it's 25%, right? Is that, if I remember correctly?
I think 2,000 is 10%.
but then over 2000 is 25%, like 2001 is 25%, if I remember correctly. So we would need a tent that is able to accommodate 2001 people to get that 500, 550. So that's a very large, that's a huge tent to be able to accommodate. And then, because you have to do all the 6-foot spacing and all that. I mean, have we even looked into that, any of that?
Yeah, so we have preliminary research on tents, because not only are we looking at tents for any outdoor venue, we're also planning graduation. So we're looking at all potential options for tent usage and tent size. And if I'm kind of picking up what you're saying, the tents need to be pretty big, right? And right now, I don't even want to speak to the research we've done, because it's been very preliminary, and Mr. Hunter and I haven't totally sat down to look at the size and cost of the tents yet. But we are examining the size of the tent and how many people you could possibly get underneath a tent with the spacing. And preliminarily, we're not really achieving the numbers we want to kind of achieve under the size tents that we're looking at. So to your point, the tents would need to be quite large with regard to the spacing that we would anticipate having underneath the tent. I think somebody had made mention to the event itself and moving off or not off and coming up with an alternative. And I believe we have the stage set for that with regards to the May 15th event. And although we are going to be outside, we do have a rain date. We certainly recognize the flexibility and the contingent upon the weather. I do want to really stress that the May 15th event is really flexible and is just being molded now into what it needs to be for our kids. We've had some really great ideas and discussions with our student leaders, our faculty leaders, and SNAP so far about the possibilities and options for the students at that event. Nothing is off the table. So in terms of some of the comments and reflection here, I do believe that event can be anything we need it to be, and give us the opportunity to provide exactly what we need and want to provide for our students.
Okay, so have we surveyed the students, the senior class? Do they actually want a formal prom? Do we know this?
So no formal surveys have gone out to the class itself in regards to that. Again, that inquiry and that availability to provide that option is not off the table. So we are poised to take this in any direction like that. And again, we are planning this ongoing.
Well, I get some of these things you could be flexible with and kind of plan around it, and some of these you can't. And I think that there seems to be this angst growing out there, associated to a prom. And I agree with Mr. Jackson. Either we could do it or we can't, and there's no in between. And if we can't do it, then we need to let the parents know. Because let me tell you, here I'm going to let the cat out of the bag or whatever it is. There's going to be prom events if we don't hold one, and that's outside of our control, and it is what it is. But it's going to happen. There may be 4 proms, there may be 2, there may be 6. I don't know. There may be, like last year, there was like mini proms at parents' houses that they got groups of kids together. So the patio proms or whatever it may be. I mean, there was all kind of creativity that occurred, and that's going to happen again. So we need to decide sooner than later is, we know the constraints that we as a school district are working within, and those constraints are defined very specifically by the governor. And those constraints are, if we want to get to the numbers that we're talking about, the environment has to be big enough to support over 2,000 people, right? So, and there seems to be some parents out there that have expertise in areas that we may not have. So maybe give it a week, ask for parent input, find out what their expertise or knowledge is, and see if it's actually something realistic or not. And then we just have to make a decision. Either we're going to have prom or we're not.
Dr. Collier, just one additional question is when we're talking about prom, what is it? Because it can't be 600 kids crammed on a dance floor within inches of each other, sweating all over each other. So what is prom? When we talk about this, right? When we talk about whether it's April 24th or another day, what will that event entail? Because as a school-sponsored event, we need to provide appropriate social distancing for the students, and we need to enforce that social distancing. So what does that event entail? What can we realistically, as a school district, do or provide for our students to honor them and to provide them the recognition? But I don't think it can be 600 kids on a dance floor as it has been in past years. So it will be very different, correct?
I agree with you. It will not be that. And I would suggest that that is not the type of event we're looking to be able to try to pull off. So this is not the year for that. What the goal here is to be flexible and use the outside venue to provide an event in terms of, I talked about the flexibility of that May 15th event. That is what that's where it's going to be. So whether we call it prom, I called it, for lack of a better term, a post-prom style event. Or I didn't, it's an original event. And I believe it can meet a lot of purposes for us. We're not ruling out the ability for students to be formal there and have a formal element to it, but there's a lot of conversation about the casual element of the events and activities and live music and dunk tank and food trucks. And so there's that element. There's the desire to find out if a formal flavor to it, should students want to participate in that way. There's that element too. So I believe that event is going to be molded into something that student generated, you know, things like that. But again, recognizing that prom as we know it, that's not what it's going to be.
I just want to make sure that that's out there, because I think we keep hearing prom. I think we need to define what that means, because that's a really big, it's not going to be what the prom I went to or you went to, or even students, 2 or 3 years ago went to.
Okay, so then let's call it what it is. There's no prom.
No.
Well, that's what I'm hearing.
No, it's not.
No, we're not going to call it
That's-
no prom. I have a couple of questions.
Well, wait, can I
Dr.
just
Collier,
it-
about partnering with parents. We can still be all in and have the parents partner with us, help us accomplish some of the tasks that the school is maybe overseeing, that would need to be involved in a formal event where the kids have the opportunity to put their best face forward and spend some time with their friends. It won't be the same, and that's okay. Nothing has been the same. But it's still something where we're giving them just an opportunity to have something like it maybe. And why not make this a little bit easier, I say? We have the 15th. April 24th isn't carved in stone if we're not going to the Sheraton, right? So you have the 15th, you're still molding that. Let's just move what we usually do inside, outside. Let's have a prom. If it has to be less time, we have it less time. Then we have the post-prom event afterwards. We can do this. We can do this outside. We need to be a can-do. I don't want those patio proms where I think that's going to be much like that whole tailgate issue in the beginning of this year. And it could have been a COVID spreader, and everybody wasn't included, and everybody wasn't masked. It wasn't spring forward. There weren't rules enforced. I saw the pictures. We all know that. I don't want to do that again. I don't want them to be in jeopardy, but I want them to have this opportunity. I encourage the parents out there not to bombard you with emails, but to share their ideas that you can take back to the students. What do you think about this? Let it be student generated, but maybe there are ideas that they're not thinking of, the group that you're meeting with, that they're not thinking of that other parents have. I know there's a ton of ideas out there, and I don't want to, just throw all of those out there because they're other people's ideas, but I want them to come to you because some of them are really good. And I do think that in general, people will feel safer outside. It needs to be outside. And cross that one off your list. Not going to do the Sheraton. Let's just move on. That would be my suggestion. I know we're just giving suggestions. That's all. Just to please ask you to look at that. And I would say, as Dr. Wright mentioned earlier, can you come back to us again and as it's shaping up and let us know what's happening? But please, I ask you also to try to look at a different idea to do the prom, or whatever prom is this year. It won't historically be the same, and that is just the way it is. But I think we can do something. So,
Can we just not overanalyze this? We're making this more complicated. I'm just a dumb engineer, so my own opinion. We're making this more complicated from where I sit. No matter what we call it, it doesn't change anything, okay? The logistical issues we would have based on us being involved will remain the same. Hear me out, please. Yes, I'm simply saying this. No matter what you call it, we will have the same issues if the district is involved. If it's inside, if it's outside, if it's on top of the roof, it's the same issue or issues. That part's not going to change.
I am 100 not saying that there won't be issues. I'm saying that we can find workarounds for them, for many of them. And outside is one of the biggest pieces right off the bat, because the Sheraton can't, and no other indoor venue is going to hold that many people. Not during COVID. Things aren't going to change between now and April.
I have not sat here and endorsed the Sheraton. That hasn't come out of my mouth. From the very beginning, I said simply this: either district is all in or it's all out. I don't see how you merge a portion of that and not eliminate the requirements of, but all due respect, I'm not speaking to you. I'm saying to everybody. That's all I'm saying, Ms. Cuzzo.
I don't think that anybody's doing that. I think that there is a group out there that wants to help. That's all. Whatever the district decides, whatever Dr. Collier and his students and his administration and whatever they decide, there are people out there to help. That's all I'm saying.
I think we're saying the same thing and just in different languages.
I was just going to say that you're both saying the same thing. The question really comes down to, as I said earlier, was that, and then if I could have finished, the prom is out on April 24th. There is no prom. So let's get that off the books, because that Sheridan's not happening, right? We could all agree to that, because nothing's going to change in the next month and a half, right? So we know that. So if you're talking about the 15th, if making that your senior day / prom event, is the goal to plan, is that the goal to plan that date? Is that the goal?
That is that date is for the purposes of making it what it needs to be for the students.
Okay, so with that, you have the opportunity to possibly tap into some parents that believe that they could be extremely helpful in coming up with some solutions. I think that some of those solutions, once we peel back one layer, 2 layers of the onion and apply the specifics that we have to apply, we're going to find out that some of those options are going to fall off the table. Because ultimately what I was trying to get to is that if you're going to try to accommodate between 500 and 600, somewhere in there, you're going to need a tent or side-by-side tents or whatever that would be able to house somewhere between 2,000 and 2,200 people, so that you could get your 500 to 600 people in that tent. That's what it ultimately comes down to. So what I suggest is maybe in the next week, if possible, is tap into some of the parents that have stated that they have experience in planning large venue events outside. Let's tap in to see what kind of knowledge they have and see if there's, I know I was contacted by one parent that has experience in doing an event on a football field somewhere with a covered tent. So why don't we just see what we could come back with? But I think the end result out of all this is that we have to make a decision sooner than later and let these people know, let the kids, let the parent, let everyone know what we're doing when it comes to prom / senior event.
Mr. DeBello, this could be done in 5 minutes. You could get Mr. Hunter, you take the let's take whatever the, the student population is. Let's say it's 5. You run a calculation to include the distance that's required based on the tent. You come up with a square footage that will tell you the size of the tent you need. This is a 5-minute calculation. This is just not this, we're making this out to be more than what it is. But that would answer your question rather quickly. That's something Mr. Hunter could do in 5 minutes. The same thing we did for the layouts in the classrooms, the layouts in the cafeteria. It's the same simple calculation.
So I think we're all saying the same thing, which is that the 24th is off, and then,
I
if
don't-
administration could move
Yeah.
forward, taking a look at what the options are going forward. We're not going to make any decisions here this
No,
evening.
I'm not
We've
concerned about,
identified that this is definitely a priority within the community. We recognize that. We'd like to explore what the options are that are going to meet the desires of the students. I mean, it's really whatever this senior day is, whether it's a formal promenade and then, they go for dinner and then come back and have, a fun event, kind of post-promish type thing. Whatever that turns out to be, that's really going to be up to administration to really do the research, to work with the students, to work with the families. We're going in circles. We're all saying the same thing over and over. I think we're beating
the issue.
this one to death.
The issue for me is not a date. The date has no meaning on this. It's a simple calculation to determine if you want to do this outside, that will simply define the square footage that you would need.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
So if I could just jump in quickly, a lot of good conversation. Here's what I love about Spring Forward. We have a lot of parents that are willing to roll up their sleeves and jump in. We have an administration that wants to go to the nth degree to make something happen for our students. And with all due respect, no administrator has forgotten about any of our students. In fact, we talk about them regularly in terms of how we can help them. I do understand the emotion behind the event. For me, it's even simpler, Mr. DeBello. Can we, and Mr. Jackson, can we stand behind a dance? Because a dance is not kids 4 feet in a classroom apart from each other. A dance is people significantly closer to each other. And if we have pictures of prior proms, it wouldn't be that. But whether you have 100 or 1,000 kids, they're going to migrate towards each other as music is played. And we either have to stand behind that event or not stand behind that event. And if we as Spring Forward do not stand behind an event where kids are going to migrate towards each other and clearly not going to stand on X's and dance 6 feet apart from each other, then I think we have to relinquish responsibility of that event and plan something that we can stand behind. So for me, it's even less about square footage of a tent and more about what we do within the square footage of that tent and what we're willing to allow it happen. And if we can't adhere to what the governor needs us to adhere to, then we say we give it to the parents to do what they need to do, and we're going to plan something that we do have some control over. So it's a little simpler for me. I know that I'm repetitive. I know I've repeated what some people have already said, but if it were up to me, I would have, in fact, I did tell Dr. Collier, I do firmly believe in building level decisions and building level planning, so I try not to overstep. I would have said, no, we cannot do a prom in terms of how we know it, just as you all said tonight. We have to find some sort of alternate to it. So I will work with the senior staff and we will employ the help of whatever parents are willing, but we've just got to decide who's gonna have control over it. And if we have control over it, to everybody's point, the guidelines are gonna look a little bit different than if it's a parent-sponsored event.
Okay, so with all that, and I agree with all that, but the only thing I want to say is that we're not saying, I won't sit here and agree that it becomes a parent. We're agreeing that the parent, from a board perspective, either we agree that we're doing something or we're not. Whatever happens beyond that, I have no knowledge of. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, we can't.
Agreed.
Right, so we're not turning it over to parents. All we're saying is either we're doing something, and if we are doing something, this is what we're doing, and if you like it, great. And again, what I was saying earlier, and what Colleen and is saying is that there are some parents that, let's see if we could tap into those resources in the near future, see what kind of ideas and experiences that they have, see if we could utilize those ideas and experiences. If not, we make a decision saying this is what we're not doing, and that's it. But the only reason I brought this up a couple of weeks ago is that, and I know you, Dr. Curley, you know this wholeheartedly, we're running out of time, right? Because we're in the middle of February, before you know it, and then there's, there's all these other things that are going on. And Mike, I have the same question about the other list of things that you put up, like the different, like the music, the sporting events, like what's actually happening there? What's happening with the induction of the National Honor Society? And then at some point, I want to circle back to graduation, but some of these other things, what are we doing? Is this all going to be virtual? Is that the plan at this point? Like, I mean,
Yeah, so in likelihood, the majority of those will be a virtual experience and or a combination of that and live stream, where we're able to have the students there. We recognize that, these events are in the auditorium or in the gym. The capacity of those after hours are very limited. So to have all of our parents and students in the same place at one time indoors is going to be difficult.
What's the number of, or the average number of NHS inductees?
Knowing that we're going to recognize the seniors from last year as well, when they were juniors, we're well over 100 students this spring.
Well, yeah, if it was two groups, what would, if we did it separately, what would it be?
I'm not sure.
I did see an email floating around, and I asked you about this because it said that we can't have people in the building in the evenings.
We can, we're at a very reduced capacity. So when we look at the event participants, students, essentially, we have to balance that versus our maximums in the auditorium or the cafeteria or the gym. So that's the challenge that we're looking at now in terms of those capacities of those areas that we typically use for those events.
Can I ask you to look at that also, if we were to split that back to the traditional junior, senior, and see if it would be possible to have, I mean, we can have 168 in here, I believe. So I guess I would like to see if that would be possible for a student, I say a senior student and two parents, or junior student and two parents, if we held it on different nights. Can that be looked into?
Sure.
Thank you.
But we can have 168 in here stationary. That's no movement. I'm letting you know that. So the 168 works if everybody sits in one place and don't move around.
I can definitely make that announcement if Dr. Collier wants me to.
How would you make that announcement? The thing is
I'm good
I
at
understand
making
what you're
those.
saying. I get it. So if you had it in here, the parents would come in, sit down in designated spots, and then you could walk in the inductees, and they would have to stand in a designated spot, and then you could actually perform and go through the ceremony. And we just have to try to do it. If it's 100, if it's somewhere between 120 and just simple, say 50-50, so 60 per class, that's two. If you do 2 tickets per student, that's total. You could actually do it in here. Well, it would be close. So, I mean, I think some of these things we have to try to get beyond the virtual and live streaming if possible. And that, I think that is one that we should be able to work through somehow, because we're not talking about a large group of students at once. We could just break it into groups if we have to. But then if we're talking about doing this massive event on the 15th in the stadium for 600 plus students, then why couldn't we do something similar for like the Music Association and their event? Because there's 200 kids and 180 kids or so in the band. I mean, I don't know the numbers, but I mean.
Yeah, they're probably closer to 300 or 400 because it's also the orchestra and choir students.
There's a lot of crossover.
Band is having an event in the stadium on the 22nd of May.
Okay, so that's their event. Is that the music event that you were talking about?
No, they're going to have that event as well as a live performing event with their students in the stadium.
So couldn't we just wrap that all up into one thing?
I'm not speaking on behalf of the Music Association.
Oh, that's right. They plan all that. That's right. Right. So they could just, okay.
Well, I'd like to say, Dr. Kohler, thank you to you and your staff for what you presented this evening with the ideas. I like what I'm hearing about these ideas, specifically the May 15th, and that idea that you're willing to adapt and continue to let it grow into what it could be. That would be something that would be inclusive for all of our students that are eligible to participate and would be realistic in this day of COVID. I think you will find what is important to the parents and the students about a prom and incorporate that into the May 15th date if that's what works. And I have full faith that you and the staff will come up with some really terrific ideas that will honor our students for this year. Thank you.
So I've had plenty of time to think about being concise with my comments. So first of all, some sarcasm here. While running for the school board, I remember knocking on doors saying, you know, vote for Dave Schaefer because I want to chime in on our prom plans. The fact that we're even discussing this is sad. And I wouldn't say that it's sad just because of COVID. Like I'm sensing in the community that we're not taking a we will put something together approach. It sounds like we are, but I think it's not being communicated. So people are starting to I'm sort of sensing a panic, right? So the fact that you're here talking about it is awesome because I think we're getting ahead of it. The second piece is I don't think it's a question from this board member of whether or not Spring-Ford should be all in or all out. I mean, it shouldn't even be a question. We should be all in. There should be something that we do to honor our students. And I would pray that we would want to do everything we possibly can to not do live streaming events or virtual celebrations of seniors, just because that to me was what we experienced last year. We did our best. I think the administration came together and did a great job. But here we are a year later. I'd feel a lot better knowing that if we had to do one of those events, that we could all look at each other and say that we sort of explored every possible option before that was the decision. And so I would like to echo other board members by saying thank you for being here and thank you for your leadership. And I look forward to having a really exciting time this spring when we honor the senior class. Last piece, there was nothing about a junior prom. So is there no junior prom being planned?
Right. So last week in my communication to the seniors, I also communicated with the junior class and regrettably had to pull away from the March 13th junior prom event. So knowing that time was of value there, I met with the junior class advisors and student leaders and informed them of that. And then on Friday communicated that. So the junior proms are still being booked in advance and we have our dates moving forward as we do with the senior prom in additional years moving forward.
So we can't sort of explore some type of creative thing for the juniors, or we're just punting on the juniors?
At this time, in terms of student activities, the focus was trying to the senior event on May 15th was exclusively for the seniors at this point. Punt, if you will, in regards to the juniors, with fingers crossed that next year we can certainly provide their event as we would like to be able to put it on.
So I want to say thank you too, because when I asked for you to come tonight, I asked for you to come and give us an update. And I understand that none of this is finalized. I just ask you to be open to finding some different ways to accomplish a number of these different events. Obviously, prom and NHS are at the top of my board right now, but they're all equally important, and they all honor students for different accomplishments and achievements, and none of them should be undervalued or overlooked in any way. And I do know that you'll do your absolute best to try to make them as meaningful as possible and hopefully less virtual. But again, you're in the planning phases. I appreciate that. I thank you for listening to us tonight too. I know that that's probably not always so fun. And then if you wanted to comment at all on graduation, because I know you said you wanted to get to that, but maybe take a pause there at that hot topic.
I appreciate that. In regards to graduation, and we certainly recognize that's a significant event as well, one that is typically planned on a particular day, okay? We typically identify a date with which to have graduation. That the convenience of that date and the availability for us to have that rain or shine on that date has been a luxury we've had. That date has been an outside event, but in the event of inclement weather, we're able to transfer that to an inside event. I don't know at this time, in terms of preliminary planning and so forth, I don't know that the ease of that type of situation will present itself this way this year. And I would certainly look for continued flexibility as we continue to work possible scenarios for graduation events. One typically identifies graduation on one particular day. I'm not sure if that's where we're going to land, or a couple of days in which we can celebrate and recognize and have graduation ceremonies. So that's the work that we're working on. We recognize capacities of the stadium as they stand now would require minimal people compared to what we typically see in the stadium for a graduation. Therefore, if you're outside, we're looking at multiple events. Again, my concern on that is inclement weather and the ability to allow a class or part of a class to have their ceremony inside or out on a particular date. Right now, we haven't been able to reach that balance with regards to pulling an outdoor event inside on the same day with the same amount of people, with the fluency that we typically do. So that's the work we're on now. I know that's not exceptionally clear. I just ask for continued flexibility there as we continue to navigate the best way or ways to graduate our seniors. At this time, I don't know if it would happen on one day, if it could all be happening on one day.
When's the earliest a graduation could occur? Do we know?
I do not know. My understanding is, well, without penalty, so to speak, in terms of seniors not being in school, I didn't count that yet. But I understand your question. There's other factors with regards to looking at the end of the year and potential dates like that. We're still in a position to evaluate the administration of final exams. With or without that, that'll impact our decision in terms of days to be able to use for that. But good question there in terms of senior days and when that last day could potentially be or not be.
Because we've been talking to property, or we'll be talking to property about going through the process of increasing capacity at the stadium based on the square footage and all that. I know Mr. Hunter's already put forward and has plans in place that he'll be presenting. And if based on all that, we could be in a position where we could have somewhere between 2,000 and 2,000 plus people in the stadium for graduation. So I would maybe circle back to Robert Hunter.
I'll take that right now if I could.
Huh?
I'll take that right now.
Well, I'm trying to give it to you. So
Yeah.
talk to Robert,
Be outstanding.
and get the inside, get outside information. And then see, what we could, from a board perspective, because we have to do it no matter what. We have to get the occupancy permits in place for the stadium. We recently learned that we didn't have them. So that would be a conversation that's going to happen in the near future as well.
Yeah, so that's a significant figure right there that's going to help the planning. And just by default, maybe worst case scenarios, I've been working up the numbers that we operated in the fall. Okay, so just by default, that was some of the numbers we worked on, but would certainly love to see that capacity increased for this planning. Absolutely.
Well, that's a topic we can discuss in property tomorrow, but it is not a short process. It's a lengthy process.
Lengthy as far as a couple months, but we're a few months. We have, Mr. Hunter, you still here? Are you here?
It's a couple of months for the process, but there's work that has to be done also to factor in with that.
Well, I don't know if I don't know if we would talk about tonight, but
tomorrow at property, and we can talk about it, and finance.
I want to add one other piece too. When you're exploring the tent option, when we had our president's council meeting earlier this week, one of the bigger pieces that came out of that is that some of the home and school groups, the music association, and others had said that if the school district was to purchase tents, that they would be interested in potentially using those as well. And some mentioned potentially even at a small cost, which might help to offset the purchase. So I just wanted to let you know that those people are in the background looking to see what's going to happen with that. So.
Appreciate that.